Hello everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we are back again. And now we're going to talk about the MCU Disney Plus trailers for the shows that are coming out this year on that streaming platform. These were for the Superbowl TV spots. And to be honest, all three trailers, well, if you can even call them trailers, they were so short, it's worth just talking about them all in one video. It's not worth doing separate reviews on them because they were just so quick. It's just, we might as well just talk about them in one go. So anyone doesn't know, which I'm sure you all do, when Marvel announced its phase 4, what was the surprising aspect was that as well as movies, we're going to have television shows on their streaming service, the Disney Plus, which are all going to interlink with the movies as part of this phase 4. Now, this is groundbreaking to a point because for the first real time, we're going to have television shows and cinematic movies working in tandem with one another. We did have the Netflix shows, yes, but as we all know, there was really a strict reluctance to have the Netflix Marvel shows intercut with the MCU movies, and I think a lot of that was down to the fact that the Netflix show were super R-rated, and as we know, the MCU movies for the most part are very family orientated, so there was no way they were going to interact those in the past. So what we're getting now with these television shows is what they've described as an expansion of their universe. So these TV spots, we had 3 shows in particular. We had The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we had WandaVision, and we had Loki. So if we focus more on The Falcon and Winter Soldier, so spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen Avengers Endgame, which I know seems silly to say as it is now the top grossing movie of all time, but just in case you haven't seen Avengers Endgame, you probably want to stop now because we're going to go over the events of that movie and how they lead going forward. So, The Falcon and Winter Soldier, we carry on when Sam Wilson has basically now picked up the shield from Steve Rogers, who at the end of Endgame became old and passed on the mantle to Sam Wilson to carry on. Now, this is following on from the comics, for anybody who doesn't know, where there is a story arc where Sam Wilson does get the shield and he takes on the uniform of Captain America and carries on the role as the protector with the Captain America shield. Now, for me, I felt within the MCU storyline, it should have been Bucky that took the shield. Okay, there's nothing wrong with Sam Wilson as a character. I like Anthony Mackie, the way he portrays him. But if you think about it, Bucky was the one who grew up with Steve Rogers in the 1940s. He was his best friend. He was the one that Steve really was at stress or ills with because he watched Bucky fall off the train or in the first Avenger, and then we had this storyline where in Winter Soldier it was Bucky getting resuscitated, and then the conflicts that came between him and Steve that spilled over to Civil War, which essentially the reason for the split between the Avengers was because of Steve Rogers protecting Bucky. So all throughout these movies, the arc between Stephen and Bucky has really been the close-knit one, so that when Steve gave up the shield, it should have really been Bucky and not Sam Wilson, in my opinion. There is a whole debate about tokenizing the characters, you know, race, gender, swapping, and etc. I'm not going to go into that now, but basically, I felt Bucky should have got the shield. But the story we have now, Sam has the shield, and the first clip we see is him throwing the shield into the tree, and we would assume this is going to be within the first episode. This is him just getting used to handling the shield and the way it moves. You know, we saw Captain America a lot of time. He would throw the shield and it would kind of have that boomerang effect where it would hit 2-3 objects and then he would get it back, go into his arm. So this is Sam training for that. We have other scenes where we see Bucky Barnes in his normal, not without the metallic arm, so I don't know what's happening there, whether he gets a new arm, and we see him aiming the gun at Baron Zemo, which was played with Daniel Bruhl, who we saw in Civil War. He was the main antagonist there. So We'll see how he escapes from being captured at the end of Civil War, and we've indicated that he's going to eventually take on the more comic book appearance where he has the purple mask. If you know anything about Baron Zemo, he has this purple mask in this comic books. So I think they're going to take a much more faithful look, and we see that transformation from Baron Zemo coming into that persona there. So we didn't see that in the trailer here, but from what we've read behind the scenes, that's where they're going to lead with that character. So this trailer showed that confrontation between him and Bucky. Bucky's pointing the gun at him. We see the bullets drop down. We see another shot where it looks like Sam is skydiving. Following these skydivers, and he's in his Falcon costume. He's flying through the canyons. Again, that could be at the beginning, I would assume, because I would imagine at some point we're going to see Sam Wilson in that costume. So that looks like we're going to get, very exciting sequence at the beginning of this show. And then we see an American football stadium with someone in Captain America uniform. Now, if anyone doesn't know, this is a US agent, and I think the US agent, correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be this kind of poster boy that the government want to use as propaganda now that Steve Rogers is out of the way. So there's a lot more going on with that US agent. Again, this trailer doesn't show anything there. Again, if you read behind the scenes, that's what we're hinting towards there. So yeah, that was really the main look on there with the Falcon and Winter Soldier. You would assume the action is going to have that very grounded, visceral sort of nature in the same way that we had with Winter Soldier and what it looks like we're going to get with the Black Widow. So yeah, Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan, they had good chemistry, particularly what we saw in Civil War. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It looks like it's going to be very lean, exciting, fast-paced, energetic. So it'll be interesting to see if Chris Evans will make... I'm sure he will, because as I mentioned before, everything's going to be connected. And we know Steve Rogers is still alive, so we're going to see him in some capacity. Who knows, maybe at the first episode, maybe at the last episode. But I'm pretty sure we're going to see Steve Rogers appear in here. So looking forward to Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So we're going to go on now to the WandaVision. Now this is the one out of all the shows that I think people are more curious about. Because from all the footage we've basically seen is Scarlet Witch and Vision in this kind of sitcom, 60s style, Brady Bunch kind of house setting. And you're kind of thinking, what are we doing here? Because these shows are following on from the current timeline. So why are we in this sort of Brady Bunch style, very house, domestic kind of setting? Now, in Endgame, where we left off, Scarlet Witch had basically struck or was involved in the fight with Thanos at the end, because when we go back to Infinity War, she had to go through that very tough experience of having to put up the Infinity Gem from Vision, basically killing him, because this was an effort to stop Thanos from getting all the Infinity Stones. So we're going to see, I guess, a fallout from that experience and what Scarlet Witch has been doing since then. We do know that she is going to appear in the Doctor Strange sequel, which is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So the assumption that the reason we're seeing this sort of very house-like setting is because her and Vision are kind of trapped in parallel timelines or parallel dimensions, and they don't really know where they are or what's happening to them. So they have to spend a lot of time figuring out how they're going to get out of the current timeline they're in. And because Doctor Strange, as we know, deals with all multiple realms, multiple dimensions, multiple portals, so I'm pretty sure we're going to see a lot of time jumping between different time periods. And we see a lot again of Elizabeth Olsen in these different outfits. And then we get that clip which got a lot of people excited, where she's in that very similar look to the iconic Scarlet Witch costume, which you have the face mark and she's all in red and her hair sort of down here. So that pleased a lot of fans. Yeah, it was nice to see, because MCU, you're going to get that. You're going to get callbacks and references and Easter eggs to the classic comic book material. And at the time, you know, it's one of those costumes that in live action you can't really do. I liked her look in Age of Ultron. You know, it's very stripped down. She was still in very red, had this crimson sort of corset top outfit, but she looks good in that. But yeah, it's one of those outfits you can't really do practically in live action. So I think that was just a nod to the fans on there. It'll be interesting to see what Vision's role in this, and how he deals with experiences that he went through. And the chemistry between Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen was very good. So I think there's going to be no concerns over how they perform this role. It will just be interesting to how far they go with the parallel universe and the time jumping. And is it going to be this really sort of out there, outlandish, kind of really sort of surreal show where we're just jumping all over the place, and it's going to really have some fun and take on different dynamics on there. So there's not really a lot more to say, because this is what the trailer basically showed you. And what I've gone through, I found out more by reading the plot synopsis as such and what's going on. But that is what we know so far about WandaVision. But Scarlet Witch's character has proven to be very popular. A lot of people like Elizabeth Olsen's portrayal. So if this show is successful, I think it will bode well for the Doctor Strange sequel. And who knows, if that successful enough and people relate to Scarlet Witch even more, we may even get a Scarlet Witch standalone movie. You know, we know that Marvel wants to push more the female characters. We've already had Captain Marvel. We're getting Black Widow. So the next mostly established female character has been Scarlet Witch. If you think about it, from what she went through in Age of Ultron, and then in Civil War, and then Infinity War, you know, she's had quite a developed arc. So if WandaVision can build on that success, and then Doctor Strange sequel can build on it some more, we may get a standalone Scarlet Witch where we delve into her past, how she got her powers, her relationship with her brother, etc., etc. Who knows? We may get a tie-in with Magneto, because if you don't know, both Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are the son and daughter of Magneto, so they may use that as a gateway into X-Men. We eventually bring X-Men to the MCU, so we'll see how that goes. But even a shorter take will be the Loki show. I don't think this is coming out to 2021. And what we saw of the clip was basically just Loki in this sort of kind of prison outfit and saying he's going to basically do some damage. Now, again, going back to Endgame, we know that when they went back in time to obtain the pim particles and they were jumping from the Avengers fight with the Chitauri, what happened was Loki managed to break free and get one of the pin particles and jump out of that timeline. So currently Loki could be in whatever time realm doing any sort of damage. So they've kind of left themselves open to sort of have free reign of what Loki can do. He doesn't have to be in any set timeline. He can be in, you know, causing mischief in this dimension or that parallel timeline or that parallel universe. And we know that's Loki's nature. And again, people really like Tom Hiddleston's portrayal. You know, he has enough menace about him, but he plays it where he can be the villain 1 minute, but he can be a sort of anti-hero the next minute. And I think that's how they're going to play it. They're not going to play it where Loki's a straight out villain and then maybe we're going to have other characters trying to stop Loki. It's going to be this very much of a guessing game, and Loki's on our side 1 minute, then he's not the next. And he's doing things for his own gain. Maybe we're going to have these standalone adventures where he's sort of caught in the middle of trying to further his own motivations, but at the same time he's caught in a scenario where he has to help a certain group of people if they're in trouble. So yeah, there's not a lot more to say about Loki coming out in 2021. As I mentioned with Steve Rogers maybe appearing in Falcon and Winter Soldier, we may very well see Loki tying into Thor again. As the end of Endgame, Thor went off with the Guardians or the Asgardians of the Galaxy. So again, he could be off doing any sort of thing. And we do know when we get Love and Thunder that Valkyrie will be the king or the queen of Asgard, and that Jane Foster is going to be taking up the mantle of having Mjolnir. So they're free to do what they want. You know, Chris Hemsworth can make an appearance here, and then maybe later on we see him in Loki or vice versa. But there will be some connection, I'm sure, between this television show and Thor and Love and Thunder. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see how they intertwine with one another. And because we're already well versed with these characters, we know we're familiar, we know where we are. It's all gonna be very seamless, I'm sure, and all make sense. And we'll have a good time just seeing these characters come back again. So that's all very well. But that's not really a lot more to say. I will do a separate video for the Black Widow trailers, but on these 3 trailers themselves, very interesting, very engaging, very exciting to see how they expand this universe. And we know that later on we're going to get future shows concentrating on She-Hulk, Moon Knight and Miss Marvel. So this is just the beginning of Marvel's Phase 4. And yeah, a very novel approach to see, as I mentioned before, the cinematic universe and the television universe intertwining with one another. Never been done before, really. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., yes, but that was one show. The CW shows, well, I'm not going to spoil it. They basically had one moment, but it's kind of, they've been their own thing. So DC were very clear not to mix the two together. So this is the first time we're seeing this kind of phenomenon happening, and it could boost well for Phase 4. So let me know what you think about these trailers. Are you excited for them? Do you think they'll actually show more interesting things than what the actual movies are? Because I know this year we're going to get Black Widow in May, and then we're going to get the Eternals in November. I think we're only getting 2 MCU films this year, I actually believe, and then I think next year we're getting Shang-Chi and Doctor Strange. But correct me if I'm wrong, and of course these schedules will change as they go, and of course we're going to get Spider-Man fitting in there. I imagine Spider-Man will come out in 2021, and again we may see further links to these shows and Spider-Man as we go on. But yeah, not a lot more to say on that, but let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll provide more coverage on these trailers as they come along. And it will be interesting to see the trailers for the other shows, particularly She-Hulk. I wonder how they're going to handle that and how she's visualised. And Moon Knight as well. I think a lot of people are very interested on how Marvel is going to take with a character that has kind of multiple personalities, sort of mental disorder, multiple personalities. So yeah, a lot of good things to look forward to in the future. But let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll provide more coverage on these trailers as they come about. So yep, that's it for now. So take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon.